Hey, this week on American Grindstone, we're trying a little something different. We're going to go from a place that I built, and we're going to talk about how we got here and what you could do to take on some bigger challenges in your life.
The Grindstone.
My sonny boy kept his nose to the grindstone.
Never give up, never surrender.
We're here at one of my favorite spots for sure.
This is one of your favorite spots?
This is one of my favorite spots, man. I've enjoyed nothing more than discovering you outside of the Thirsty Badger, setting this up outside and asking me to come do your air conditioning or the fan. The fan wasn't working.
Fans.
So the second I came in here and saw this, I was like, yeah, absolutely. This is where I want to be. This is where I want to spend my time.
Yeah.
So I could only guess that you as well. Love it.
That was almost 5 years ago.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah.
My God.
Yeah, that's when we launched this business in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me about a year. It took me 9 months to build.
Yeah.
But we were at a beer garden, an outdoor beer garden called the Thirsty Badger.
Yes.
It's a friend of mine, Lane's side project. We'll have him on the show at some point too, because how he built that was really interesting.
Well, and that was the cool thing of the collaboration there too, because the beer garden at Thirsty Badger is gorgeous itself.
Yes.
And is its own kind of spectacle around, especially around Linden area. But then on top of it, having the Airstream out there, it looked so cool. Yeah. But then I didn't even realize that you could actually go inside of it. You could actually sign up. You can get a key fob. You can go into it. Yeah. Like that whole thing was a discovery. I believe I did the fan and I came back later that week and we smoked our first cigar in here.
Yeah.
Well, I believe it was my sister-in-law's birthday or something. And
okay.
you
you all were there. Yeah. I do remember that.
A couple of ladies in here and me smoking cigars. It was great.
And you've never turned back.
I've never been. And I've never been so attracted to my wife smoking those cigars. My goodness.
I'll tell you, it gets it done.
That's
right?
why you wear the pants.
Well, it's funny, when I got the idea for this trailer, I was traveling for my job, and I was speaking in like 40 cities a year. Mm-hmm. I was traveling a lot, but I didn't like going to bars. Yeah. I got tired of going to movies. Yeah. And I didn't want to hang out in the hotel room. Yeah. And I've been smoking cigars for like 25 years. Yeah. But I found these cigar lounges in the South. We live in Washington. That's not a thing here.
Never heard of it.
Unless you're on a reservation.
Yep.
And I started being in the South. I started experiencing these places, and the conversation that took place in them, and the kind of the swankiness.
Yes.
You know, I've always said like a cigar is an every man's luxury. Yeah. Right? Everybody can afford it, you know? And so that's what I loved. But when I would come home, I would sit in my uninsulated concrete shop
in Washington State
on buckets and just freeze and shake. And I'm going, this is not the experience that I'm having out there in the world.
Is it worth it? Is it? Yeah. You're like, come on.
Well, and then on top of that, you get some friends over. Yeah. And you're all huddled around a little tiny space heater.
Yes.
And you are bundled up. It's a mess, right?
It's not fun.
No.
And
here we are in the middle of winter in our T-shirts and amazing Costco flannels.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I do love it.
I didn't know that Costco upped their game so much.
Thank you, Amanda. I appreciate it.
But like enjoying the space. Yeah. And that's what I wanted to do when I got the idea.
Yeah. And it's definitely one of those it's the reason why people go to coffee houses. It's the reason why people go out to do work or to be inspired, right? Yeah. So you go somewhere else, a different space than your house to kind of to get away from it for one, but then just inspire new ideas. And this one, like we've had plenty of podcasts and like talks here, life talks here, you know, where it's like these places do inspire you to dream bigger or to have conversations you wouldn't normally have, which I absolutely adore.
That's the thing, right? The thing I've loved about cigars is not actually smoking a cigar, but it's the conversation that happens during it. And it's like you set a timer. Here's an hour and a half where we just get to be.
Yes.
And you can have conversation. And for guys, that's an interesting place to be, right? Yeah. I mean, most of the acceptable social mediums is a coffee shop or a bar.
Yep.
Right?
For sure.
When I was traveling, I discovered this and the kind of community that you could build here and the kind of conversations. And, you know, the first weekend we opened, I had a 3-star Air Force colonel sitting with a complete stranger, having a cigar, and the guy was a plumber.
Yeah.
and they talked for a couple hours.
Yes.
You couldn't meet two guys that didn't have more in common than these two guys, but because of the medium, it lent themselves to that space.
I love that, and that's I was gonna bring that up too. It's such an interesting thing with like guys too being friends and all that. You know, I went through a period in my life, and I'm sure most people have as well, where like I didn't feel like I had like really close guy friends and like or people in my circle, you know, the people going out drinking and like, you know, I'm a dad with kids and I just wanted someone on my own pace, right? You know what I mean? And so for me, it's like, well, what do? You call up a guy you like that you think you could be friends with, and then you go to a bar. That's dating at this point. You know what I mean?
It is,
It feels like dating. So I do like the times that I've been here, and like me and you are just hanging out. But you have other people here that I've met like handfuls of guys from this place of just like, we're talking about, you know, brothers in Christ or, you know, other guys that just need, you know, 15 minutes away from their family and they're looking to close their eyes, you know,
or
I've seen it all, you know,
they got off work and they don't know what to do with themselves.
Yeah.
And like me, they're tired of the bar scene.
Totally.
So they're coming somewhere else.
Yeah. And this place really lends that as like, okay, here's this medium where you can find other guys that are going to be into this certain, at least particular space that you at least have that commonality with, at least on that. Like, you know it exists.
Yep.
Right? So therefore, you're more inclined to probably drive with each other, which I totally dig.
There's an old quote, and I can't remember. I don't know who it's attributed to, and I don't know if I've ever known.
Yeah.
But it says that a cigar is a rebellion against frenzy and insanity.
Oh, my gosh.
And I like that thought.
Yeah.
You know, as a guy with ADHD and has always got a million ideas going, to slow down.
Yeah.
I can read a book when I have a cigar.
Mm-hmm.
I have a hard time reading a book at home.
Yeah. Just
sitting in a chair.
Yeah.
I get so fidgety.
But you slow down.
But here I can do that.
Yeah.
I listen. I put a record player in here and a nice system, and I can put a record on.
Yeah.
And just be.
More often, I find Sean here than home, or when I'm texting you, hey, what's up? You're like, I'm at the tin can.
Absolutely.
You know, which is great. I love that.
It helps that I live 2 blocks away and I can just walk down here whenever I want.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, now, being a podcast about doers, we thought we'd take it this week into the tin can to show you what a doer can accomplish. And that starts with Sean. I mean, that starts with this podcast. He started this, so we wanted to come in here, take a look at what you can accomplish while also working a 9-to-5 but living your dream. Mm-hmm. So this is a wonderful space for us to be in right now. Tell me a bit about it. Like, where do you go from, I have this picture drawn by me of an Airstream that I want to turn into Cigar Lounge. Where does that become a reality, and where do you just go, all right, I guess I gotta start running.
Yeah.
Go buy an Airstream.
Yeah. You know, the funny thing about it is one of the houses I owned, I built a shed. Yeah. Sheetrocked, insulated, ventilated, recessed lighting, and I called it the Roosevelt Room. Mm-hmm. And I had a couple chairs in there and a desk, and I could go work there during the day sometimes. And I always wanted to recreate that after we sold that house, but never found its place. And when I was traveling, I really started to crave it more. Mm-hmm. But I realized, like, I wasn't just craving for a place for me to go, but I thought, man, I think other people would enjoy it too. Yeah. Especially here, there's nowhere to go.
There's nowhere.
And so, you know, when you're in the South, they're everywhere, right? In most other states I've been to, there's cigar lounges everywhere. Wow. Here, there's not. And so when I was traveling, I started to look at Washington state laws. Like, why don't we have it? Mm-hmm. So a little Google search on a flight, and I saw that you can't smoke in a public place.
Wait, Google search on a flight. So you're probably coming from a cigar lounge.
Yeah, I was coming. Yeah,
you're like, all right, no wasting time.
Yeah,
right on, man.
And I have idea books that these are a couple of them that I always have them in my backpack. Yeah, I have one in my backpack just if I get a weird idea, I write it down. And I've tried digital. I've tried doing it on my phone. Something about putting pen to paper that really gets it done. In fact, I was looking through these idea books earlier today. Yeah. And I found in one of them the first writings for a podcast.
No, that's fantastic.
And I had written in another book, this one, a lot about podcasting years ago. But it wasn't until I started flipping through. I'm like, oh, I had another idea in 2017. And, oh, here's one from 2014. And, like, you're like, whoa, like, this is crazy. Yeah. Yeah, you know, the when I was studying the law, you know, as, you know, the legal mind that I have, I realized you couldn't have smoking in a public place. Mm-hmm. You can't have employees in a place where they're smoking.
Okay.
And you can't be in a building that's attached to other buildings. Like those are kind of the big three, right?
Yeah.
It's a very unique environment. And really, they're not saying you can't, but they're making it near impossible too.
Sure.
Right? And again, in Washington, the only places that you can find cigar lounges that anybody can go to is on a reservation. Because tribal land is different, and the laws there are different as well. It's also where you can usually find a better deal on cigars because they're not taxed on tribal land.
Exactly.
So I started to think, like, what could I do to find the loophole? And I built a lot of stuff. I've built some hot rods. I've built a truck that turns into a transformer-like stage. I built a mobile youth room. Like, I love creating.
Yeah.
And they all come out of these idea books. And so, in fact, this is the book that I drew the picture on the flight. And this is what I started with.
No way.
Right here. This is the first sketch of the tin can.
That's wild.
I didn't have a trailer or anything. I just sat on this plane, read those things, and drew this picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
honestly, it has not changed much. You stayed pretty close to that plan.
Yeah.
Little deviations up from that table or what have you, but
absolutely,
it is that, dude.
And it's funny because in one of my other idea books from later, you see the sketches and measurements that I started to do once I had this trailer. Yeah. And I want people to know too, like, most of the books are empty.
Yeah.
And there's random pages in the middle where it's jotted down. So, like, this is not like a Da Vinci find where you're going to find, like, incredible drawings after my death. This is, like, a rambling of thoughts and ideas.
Like, this was a crazy man.
Yeah. And then I like this book, and I go get a different one because I think it looks cool. And, but what I did is I realized, okay, what I need to do is create an independent structure that's affordable. And I need to make it members only so it's not public.
Yeah.
But I also need to give members their own access.
Yeah.
And so I sketched out this Airstream.
Which I love that, the whole access. I remember way back when, and do you remember the Cobra Lounge, that hookah bar in Bellingham?
Oh, yeah.
And we would go or whatever because that was the big thing at the time was that hookah bar. But it wasn't this members only where you had a key fob to get in. I really love that aspect of it, almost like a gym. But like you can bring your friend in here and have alone time. If you want to come at 10 o'clock at night or what have you can come whenever you want.
Yeah, I mean, and we're open from 10 to midnight, 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
And our members have a key fob.
Yeah.
And so what we do is I sit down with each and every one of them. I ask them some questions. We have a cigar together, and I'm a pretty good judge of character, so I can tell in a very short amount of time whether or not they're going to be a good fit. I've turned down a handful of people, but not a lot.
Yeah.
And they get a key fob, and that they hit on the door, and that unlocks the door. They come in. It's all self-checkout. We have cameras everywhere, but we've, in 5 years, never had anything stolen or vandalized.
That's wonderful.
In fact, sometimes I'll catch a member on the video. They sweep the space up.
Oh.
Or they're they're wiping down the counters. I came in the other night. There was a member here sweeping.
That's fantastic.
And I thought, this is the ownership.
Yeah.
And the uniqueness is really fun.
Yeah.
But when I started, all I did was take this sketch and just tell everybody about it. I just told everybody, like, hey, this is what I'm going to do.
It's going to be huge.
Yeah. And that's what I used. I just said, this is it. I'm going to build this thing.
Yeah.
And I drove around, and every friend I talked to, and it wasn't like I was going out proselytizing this, but I'm always sharing my ideas and trying to get people on board, right?
Yeah.
And, I ran into my friend Corey, and this is the secret. This is the secret in terms of building this stuff.
Okay.
I told Corey about this, and Corey looks at me, and he says, I literally have a trailer sitting in my driveway that my wife says needs to go. Yeah. And the funny thing about it to me was he had gotten it, him and his brother-in-law, to do an Airbnb.
Gotcha.
But it became a lot of work.
Yeah.
And they puttered out. And it was leaking, so they had tarps all over the top of it. And his wife was like, it needs to go. It's been sitting in the driveway too long, and nobody's doing anything with it.
Yeah.
So I told Corey, hey, why don't we be partners?
Yeah.
And let's figure it out. I'll build it. You get the trailer. He goes, deal.
I love it.
But my thing was, I'm not going to take out a loan. I'm not going to go in debt.
Yep.
So I took pictures of this trailer as is. I'm sitting in the bathroom. So this was the shower.
Yeah.
This was the sink. This was the medicine cabinet. Here was the toilet.
Oh, totally.
Right?
Totally. Yeah.
And the wall was about here.
Yeah. Wow.
And so I took a picture of this being pulled behind the stage truck that I had built.
Yeah.
And in my travels, I just shared it with people when we were out to dinner or talking or whatever, and we were talking about fun side things. And I was in a green room in Joplin, Missouri, and this musician that was featured at this conference I was speaking at, and I got to talking. And I went down and spoke, and then I came back up to the green room, and he turned his laptop around, and he says, I want to be your business partner.
Wow.
Here's 3 ways I could do it.
Wow.
And so I came home. I wrote up an LLC, which I'd never done before. LegalZoom.com. That was like an amazing tool for me.
Little life hack there.
Yep. I wrote up a LLC. I applied for a business permit and a tobacco retailer's permit. And within a few weeks, I had it all done. I shipped it off in a partnership agreement. And I sent it off to this guy in Florida. And he sent me a check for 10 grand and said, all right, get to it.
Wow.
And
share your ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah, like straight
Always.
legit. Yeah.
Like write them down and share them with people.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily like I wasn't sharing for the purpose of trying to get people on board.
Sure.
I'm not a salesman in that sense, but I'm passionate and I love creative ideas. And I love when I sit down with somebody and I show them an idea and then their idea builds on mine.
Yes. Yes.
And the ideas get better.
I love that.
And so I made a rule that I wasn't going to touch this trailer until I had cash in hand.
Yeah.
But I wasn't going to take out a loan. I wasn't going to go into debt. Now I have cash in hand. So the first thing I had to do was gut it.
Yeah.
And it was perfectly well preserved. And I gutted it. I took it all the way down.
Was that hard?
A little bit because I love the old stuff, but I like restoration.
Yeah.
And I like repurposing.
Yeah.
And so it was in the sense of this was a perfectly preserved trailer. It's a time capsule.
Yeah, in a way, right?
Yeah.
It's someone's family, right?
But I'm going to rip it apart.
Yeah.
And we're going to make something nice.
Equally as fun, though.
Exactly.
Demo day was the best.
Yeah. Yes.
It's so great.
Now, one of the things that I do in every space that I've created, and I love the designing the space, is I put a chair in the corner of the room, up where the humidor is, a little table with my idea book, and a little ashtray. And when I'd get off work and everybody went to bed, I'd come out, I'd have a cigar, and I'd just look at the space, and I would just start dreaming.
You'd scheme all night. Yep.
And I'd hop on Pinterest.
Yeah. Yes.
And I'm looking, I got some art books from the library. You know, the trailer is a 1969 Avion Argonaut.
Yes.
Argo. And the Argonauts were sailors in Greek lore. And so there was this imagery, Jason and the Argonauts, the search for the golden fleece, right?
Love it. Love it.
So there was this image in my head that I wanted to capture with the space.
Yeah.
And so here's the funniest thing. So right above me is a picture of Hector and Achilles.
Yes.
Locked in the Battle of Troy, Mortal Kombat.
Yep.
Best fighter from each side, duel to the death, right? Achilles wins, by the way. Sorry, spoiler alert.
Yeah, spoiler.
That is like thousands of years old news. If you haven't read that one already, you probably wouldn't anyway. The first thing I bought when I deposited money in the bank was these two statues.
Oh, is it two?
Yeah.
Put together. Oh,
they put together.
Oh, genius.
And my business partner shows up week 1. And I have this tore out. It's just an empty medicine cabinet. And I have those two guys sitting in the medicine cabinet. And he comes in and he's like, what's that? And I was like, it's my first purchase. And he goes, do we need to like go over the finances together? And my first thing was, yes, we do.
Yeah, sure.
We need to do that because I will just spend. I have ideas. But trust me, that is the centerpiece.
Yeah.
And when I started to design the space, I was like, I want to use period appropriate metals, coppers, brass, and bronze. And I want it to feel like the hull of a ship.
Yeah.
And so that's what I started to work with. Even this pattern here is a Greek pattern.
Yeah.
And and I wanted that kind of to feel throughout.
Yeah.
So with the coppers and even the paint, like I got to paint because smoking cigars is going to yellow any wall.
Yeah.
So why not get a patinaed paint that looks
Yeah.
yellowed, right?
And it creates such a warmth in here
Yeah.
too. That's such a secondary
Yes.
as well. It's lovely.
But it's aged over the last 5 years, right?
Yeah.
It's yellowed a little bit more.
Yeah.
But it adds to the atmosphere.
It does.
Right?
It really does.
I I had the first big vision I had was these walls.
Yeah.
And the walls are the slatted wood. And I had a contractor buddy stop by to see what I was up to. He saw it sitting in my driveway, and he's like, "Don't do that, man. It's so much labor. Like, don't. It's so much work." And I was like, "Yeah, you're right." And so I went out and bought like a rubberized adhesive flooring, and I put it on the wall.
Yeah.
And then it fell off. And then I talked to another friend of mine. He's like, "Get some contact cement." So I went out and got contact cement. I covered the whole wall with contact cement. And this stuff that's the top of these tables, this is the stuff I got for the walls.
Vinyl plank flooring. Yeah.
And I did this whole wall.
Yeah.
Spent 7-8 hours getting this whole wall together.
No.
And I went to bed. And I'm talking like I started working on this at 10 o'clock at night till about 1, 2 in the morning most nights. And I'd work on it some on Saturdays after I got done with all the stuff around the house. And I wouldn't work on it on Sundays. And so that next morning I came out and it was almost all on the floor.
Yeah.
And I tried one more time.
I'd be so defeated.
And then I walked away for almost 3 weeks.
Wow.
Like I couldn't come
no
back
work
out.
at all.
No.
Yeah.
I was so defeated.
Yeah.
I tried 3 different times. 3 different times it fell off.
Yep.
One of the times I did the whole side and it fell off. And I was like, it took the wind out of my sails.
Yeah.
But the nice thing about doing a project like this is I had somebody invested in it and I had accountability.
Yeah.
And I needed to be a man of my word and
get it done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, I'm just going to do the way I envisioned it.
Yeah.
And
It's so beautiful, man.
Thank you.
It turned out so well.
I got a lot of fur and I ran it through my planer till it hit the certain depth. I searched for probably 2 weeks for these particular screws.
Yeah.
So I needed a screw that would go into metal, but also stick to the wood, but it had a certain kind of face and finish.
Yes.
So that it didn't look like a bunch of flathead screws.
Is a lot of that like this is online purchases?
So I got these at a company called Tacoma Screw.
Oh yeah, I know them. Yeah.
I thought it was a different kind of store.
Yeah.
It was a hardware store.
Sketchy store.
Yeah. So I got the screws, and I planed and cut each of these pieces with my son. We sanded it all down.
Yeah.
We stained each piece, and we pre-drilled every hole.
Were your hands just like
They're raw and they're stained, covered in stain.
Yeah.
And I did the math. If you put all of these pieces together end to end, including the handful that I never used, it's a half a mile.
That's insane.
It was so nuts.
That's insane.
And so then I started putting it up, and it took a long time.
But it's that kind of quality of work though that when you see it, that took a lot of time.
Yeah.
That someone did all this. Someone stained all that. So you are dumbfounded.
Yeah.
I was not expecting this when I first walked in here, and it takes your breath away in a very artistic way of like, I didn't know that you could do this. You know what I mean? That's why even coming into here now, it's still like, yeah, that's right. This thing exists.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, it's so beautiful.
Oh.
It's an art piece itself.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I treat the trailers. I've built 2 of them now. We have one here and one in Montana. And I treat them, I call it like an oyster. So I don't shine up the outside. If there's big dents, I take them out.
Sure.
Obviously, we seal it so it doesn't allow the weather to come in. But I don't polish it.
Yeah.
Because I want it to be understated. When you walk up to it, it
so
looks like a
smart.
trailer.
That's actually really smart.
But when you open the door, every person in 5 years that's come through that door, whoa.
Yeah.
What? Because you don't expect
None
the
at all.
pearl inside of that oyster.
Oh yeah, I still have trouble figuring out how to open the door, and you always have to help me. But that's the truth. Like on the outside, it's so incognito. You could park this in a back alley anywhere.
Yeah.
And people are like, leave it alone. But then you get inside, and you're like, it's like a mansion in here.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It feels nice.
Royal. It's very regal.
We
very
wanted
regal.
that, and we wanted that luxury, right?
Yeah.
Part of the thing is too is like a lot of cigar lounges are really dark, and so I wanted a lot of kind of the hue that we have in the lighting.
Yeah.
That was really intentional. In fact, all the wall lights are LED lights.
Yeah.
And I could not find an amber LED that had the color that I wanted. So I found a glass spray paint.
Really?
And I spray paint every one of the light bulbs.
That's what you had to spray paint all those?
Every one of them, because I wanted a certain kind of color.
That's some dedication.
And so I have boxes of replacement light bulbs that are spray painted that are, But the funny thing is because these are 12 volt, the ones in the front, for example, 4.5 years, those were on constantly, and I never had to change them out.
That's wild.
Such a low wattage.
Yep.
Very easy.
Lasts forever.
Yep. Lasts for a very long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of LEDs, if it's really, I'm an electrician. So, but a lot of LEDs, like you'll get like 10 years if it's like real low voltage.
Yeah.
Like it blows your mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the thing, right? You had to kind of figure it out because you have your 110 lighting, like these lamps, but all the wall lighting is 12 volt. That's always been the trick with this trailer. And I think one of the biggest lessons I learned from doing both of them now. And we tested every wire. I had a buddy come over and we would hook a tester up to one end and we'd go test the other end. And when we found the match, we labeled them and we did that to every wire in here.
Oh, whoa.
But the problem is, and what I would never do again, is I would gut it completely and rewire it from the start.
Yeah.
Because this is from 1969. And so I've always had problems with the ceiling fans.
Yeah.
I'm having problems with the ceiling fans right now.
Yeah.
I just replaced one because I thought, well, maybe if I replace it, but they still aren't working.
Yep.
And the reality is I tested the signal, but these wires have been in here since 69. So there could have been a mouse that got through it, or just time, or brittle, or so somewhere between here and the fuse panel,
there's something,
right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I found that with our trailer in Montana too. The people that I bought that trailer from, they had redone all the wiring.
Yeah.
And we did the same thing. We tested every wire. Yep.
Labeled it.
No, they didn't redo all the wiring. They did a lot of the wiring, but not all of it. Yep. And so if I were to do these again, that's the one thing I would do different. It's more work.
Well, and also too, like you guys also had to like put in a lot of outlets too, because I mean, back then, even then, like electricity was a luxury.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't get a whole bunch of walls of outlets. You'd just get a couple here and there, right?
Absolutely.
So you had to do some wiring anyhow. I mean, I know in here and in there and a bunch that are on the walls that you were already doing. So at that point, it's like, yeah, maybe just cut it next time.
Absolutely.
Instead of having to take anything down, right?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, I like to work with a cigar.
Yeah.
And so I put lap desks in here, and we put outlets in between every other seat in the armrest because we wanted it to be functional for somebody that's working.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, our busiest time was noon to 6.
Yeah.
Because it was pastors, businessmen, people that worked from home.
Yeah.
We had an attorney that was a member here, and he would do some of his online casework from here.
Awesome.
And we had a guy that's a nurse, and he did a lot of the work. It was all remote nursing, and he does it from here. He still does it from here.
Still wore his scrubs too. I don't know
It was
why.
weird. It's always weird when you come in. You're like, hey.
It's gonna smell like a cigar, man. No. But so you obviously get the name. You get the idea for the concept of what you're gonna theme this to be from the name.
Sure.
Did you ever mess around with any other ones besides the other one, obviously in Montana?
Yeah.
Did you ever come up with any other schemes for it?
No, I mean, when we started, we said, well, we're just going to call it the Argo because we loved that idea. That idea was so apparent to us right away. We loved the Greek theme.
It is perfect.
And you'll notice, like, when you look around, like, the detail, and I just nerd out about it, but, like, in the front of this trailer was all chrome rivets in the front piece. Well, no, you can't have chrome. Mm-hmm. So I found copper rivets, and I drilled out every chrome rivet, and I put a copper rivet in there. Jeez. Just so that little detail, right? Just the little things. Because I want somebody, when you go to Red Robin, there's always something to look at everywhere you sit.
The Dirty Bird? Oh, yeah.
Yeah. There's always something to look at everywhere you sit.
Yeah.
It's a little, it's chaos, and it's a little crazy, and it's a little kitschy, but, like, I've always loved Red Robin. It's always had really fascinating things to look at.
That's the ADHD in you.
Yeah.
There's always something to see.
There's always something to see. And so when I built the trailer, I wanted that same thing. I wanted people to notice little details.
Oh, for sure.
No matter where they were sitting. And so the Argo was the name. we played around with a handful of names for the lounge itself, but in one of these books I was looking at earlier, I wrote Tin Can with a big circle around it. So I think that Corey and I were sitting, if I remember correctly, we were sitting talking about it, and that's where we decided, like, it's a tin can. It's a big aluminum trailer. Yeah. Let's call it that. So that's where the Tin Can Cigar Company was born. From
day one, love that name. I think it's so perfect. It's also the simplicity, too, of it all.
Yep.
You know, Tin Can, it's just like bringing it down to what it is, and also too, again, as you said before, it undersells it for sure.
Yeah.
You know, Tin Can, you walk in like, oh, and even the shop as well. Yeah. You walk in and you're like, good Lord, it's just as beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think interior design is like art, right?
Well, I know you're okay, because I've been to your house, and I'm like, like I was telling my wife, I was like, you gotta see his place, man. He's got like a whole vibe about him. I think he really, really likes the interior design because it's just comfy, cozy, looks great. I couldn't do that. Like last time I did that, I think I was a teenager, had posters up in my room. I still have some of those posters. My wife told me to design a room. I'd be like, it literally looked like I was 16.
It had movie posters.
That's all it was. That's all it is. That and like, you know, what's his name? Andy Warhol. A couple of those.
Yeah.
So it's
like, a little bit of taste.
Yeah, a little bit of taste. Yeah.
My room as a teenager had a Motley Crue poster and a woman named Nurse Karen on the wall. That was it. And a Calvin and Hobbes. That was it.
There you go.
So like, yeah, but in college,
to have Motley Crue and Calvin and Hobbes on the same wall. Yeah, that's pretty diverse. I love that.
It would be a toss-up between Dr. Feelgood and Calvin for sure in a battle. So. Yeah, I think, you know, the idea of like space, you know, in college, I went to coffee shops all the time.
Yeah.
And in Spokane, Washington, where I went to school, and like, there was this place called the Mercury Cafe, and they just had the coolest vibe, and it was very Greek vibe too, actually. It was, but I loved the environment. I found myself really drawn to environment.
To places like that, for sure, man.
So that's what I wanted in here. I wanted a place where guys walked in, and they were taken back by it, but also they felt incredibly comfortable here.
Yeah. It is one of those, it's like one of those things where, for me, when I first walked in, it was like, when you take your kids to like an aunt's house that's like super fancy, right? You're like, don't touch anything, you know, because it's just so regal and royal. But then you do get that ownership about it, where it's like, no, this is the place I go to, and it ends up being a part of you, and almost in a weird way, like. And maybe this is just me, and maybe I'm too much of a romantic about everything, but you're worthy of being in a place like this, you know, that's so regal. You know, there's something about that when you're puffing a cigar, hanging out with buddies, having a good space to talk, that you're in this beautiful setting, this environment that is invoking so much and making you feel self-worth.
Well, that's when I designed the space. I wanted to design a space where guys could sit across from each other and have a conversation.
Yeah.
Because how many times in my life have I been in a conversation with a guy and we're both looking in the same direction? We're not looking at each other.
Yeah.
But we're comfortable having a conversation in the peripheral, right?
Yeah.
And so even in here, like I didn't put TVs or screens. I put vinyl.
Yeah.
And a tube amp and nice speakers. And, you know, I made chairs that when we designed the chairs, my buddy John Baumhoff helped me with the frame. He's a framer. Mm-hmm. And so he came and helped me design the seats. And we Googled like the most comfortable seating angles, and we found this particular kind of BMW that has the most comfortable seats because of the angle. And so we built the seats with that angle.
Wow.
So that when you sat here, your legs wouldn't fall asleep.
That's amazing.
And I've been in a handful of trailer lounges since, and most guys just build a bench. They build a 90.
Straight up.
It's straight up.
And then you're in control of the arch,
right? But nobody sits at a 90. Even the cheapest chairs have a little bit of a angle to them.
Yeah.
So when I designed this, we really took a lot of work into doing that. But the weird thing about trailers is, especially these, it's curved this way.
Yeah.
It's curved this way. Like you look at these corners, right? It's all curved.
Yeah.
In every direction.
Yeah.
And then
you're in a giant Twinkie essentially.
Yeah. And then the sides are also, they bow out a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's 1969, so it's not, there's no square corner in this thing.
It's been moved and driven and shifted
for a very long time.
Yeah. So did you find that like this bench, like you would have to come out a little bit more or move this sort of?
We built a template and we cut every piece out.
Yeah.
But then we had to go and we had to feather the back of every piece so it would adhere to the walls. Oh my God. So every piece has a little bit different cut.
Yeah.
Because we had to figure out how it fit.
Wow.
You know, I think one of the most life-giving things, because this project, I'm about 1,300 hours into it.
Yeah.
When I built it, 1,300, 1,300 hours. It was 1,000 hours of labor and probably a couple hundred hours of sitting around having a cigar, thinking, dreaming, scheming, writing more ideas, taking some measurements, trying to solve problems. Yeah. But actual labor, I've got 1,000 hours into this space. Jeez. And but you have days where the walls fall off, or you have days where I can't quite figure this out. But then that's where your buddies come into play. Yeah. And I always kept a stocked beer fridge. Yeah. With IPAs, with microbrews. This is a funny stereotype. Okay. Yeah. Because I'd have contractors over, I'd have car guys over, because this is the best of both worlds. This is two worlds I love living in.
For sure.
Contractors always drank the IPAs, the microbrews. They always drank that. Car guys, they drank the Pabst, the Rainier, and the generic white cans that say beer on the side. Car guys every time. I did not see a car guy in all of the builds I've done go for the microbrews. They always went for the cheap beer.
We're simple folks.
Yeah. And then in the bottom I had Mexican Cokes, because it's the greatest thing to ever pair.
Which he still has here, which is just fantastic.
It's the best.
Yeah.
But, community carries you as well. And you have to have community if you're going to take on a project this big. Yeah. You got to have people that are cheering you on. And you got to have people that are going to come and roll up their sleeves next to you and do that work as well. Yeah. When I built the second one, I started hosting a barbecue at my house every Thursday night. And my friend, Fred, he is an incredible barbecuer. And so he would smoke meat. Fred's like, I don't know how to do any manual labor, but I can barbecue with the best of them. Yeah. So he would smoke a brisket or pulled pork. He would make macaroni, and he'd come over, and we would just have this big old spread, and all these guys would get off work, and they'd come over. We eat a bunch of food, and we get to work, and we work 3 or 4 hours. Maybe sometimes there's 3 of us, and sometimes there's 10 of us. Yeah. But everybody had a job, and so we're just working, but just one evening a week. And then afterwards, we'd have a whiskey or a Coke or a beer and have some cigars and talk. And so even before it was done, it was already building community. Yeah. And it was funny. Over the years, I've had some of those guys reach out to me like, hey, are you going to do another one? Like, when can we do that again?
No way.
And it's funny to me, like, oh, I always felt like it was such an imposition.
And I feel like that's your take on it too, though. Like when you're in that situation, like, oh, these guys are coming out, but that might be like the best thing for them. Like, every Wednesday we go and do this thing. It's fantastic. Yeah. Like we're helping Sean out, and like it's the thing my wife understands, or like my kids can come and help us too. Yep.
Yeah, my kids, my wife at the time, we were all in here. Yeah, my kids were really involved in the building of this one in particular. Yeah, yeah,
that's wonderful too. Yeah. One in Montana, go be in Montana, but this one, I got some roots in this one.
Exactly. I really do. I mean, so the armrests, this top piece, and the whole top of the humidor. So that's a really unique story. My great great grandfather planted that tree. Mm-hmm. I was the 5th generation in the same house growing up, somewhere around the 7th or 8th on the property on my grandmother's side. So our family had been on this land for a long time, and my great-great-grandfather planted a walnut tree. Yeah. We had an orchard in our house growing up, and we had a lot of really unique trees. We had the same grandpa took 3 plum trees, different breeds, and he wrapped them around each other, and he grew them. And this tree was probably 8 feet around. By the time I was growing up, we were climbing this tree, but it was 3 plum trees, and it had the most unique plums.
Would it actually look like?
The whole thing was spun,
so
right?
Cool.
But on that property, my great-great-granddad planted this black walnut tree. Yeah. My dad had a sandbox under this tree as a kid and played under this tree. Yeah. And then in 1962, there was it was called the Columbus Day Storm. And it was hurricane force winds that hit the whole west coast of Washington. No way. And it uprooted this old black walnut tree. And my granddad, my family up until my dad were all loggers. Yes. So my granddad cut it up into logs, but my dad was a woodworker. And so it sat in the shed. And then my dad got it. He made it into big old slabs.
He milled them down into slabs?
Yeah, he milled them into big slabs. But they were still pretty thick. And, but he never did anything with them. They sat at my dad's shop for 30 years.
Agreed.
And then I inherited those things out of that shop when my dad moved up here. He didn't have a shop anymore. So I brought that wood up here. Yeah. And I milled it all down to do all of this. Yeah. So the story of my family is literally built into this thing.
Yeah, like your dad played underneath this.
Under this tree.
What does he think about that? I mean, he's got to be pretty pumped about
It's
that.
pretty funny because my dad always gripes that I'm using up all of his wood.
No.
But, that's what granddads do, right?
It's so true. It's so true. I had a plan for that.
Yeah.
I was saving that.
I was saving that.
Like, I've made a desk. I've made it like this. I have more wood at home.
Yeah, it's the thing. I built a desk. I built my home desk out of it.
I've seen it. It's gorgeous.
My cousin spun a billy club because my dad was a cop, and so I have a billy club out of this wood.
Out of that tree too?
Yeah.
No way.
I still have. I have more of it still that I haven't used, and I've built some good. I built a couple of cigar box guitars and some other fun things using
you
it.
have a cigar box guitar too?
Yeah, I built a handful of
What are we
those.
doing? Let's get out of here. Go show me this.
Just like making them.
I'm so impressed by that.
The cigar box guitars were the pandemic project.
Yeah.
I'm like, I have all these cigar boxes.
I love it, dude.
And I have a bunch of wood.
So you use the neck of it.
Yeah, so my dad got me a cardboard box cigar box guitar for Christmas, and I was like, well, I have a bunch of real ones.
Yeah.
So, and I'm a guitar player, so I was like, oh, I'm gonna make one. And so the first one I made it's in our store here, it's in the store, and it's on display in there. The second one I made didn't play well, so it's on display in the trailer, but it's like screwed to the wall.
yeah.
Yep.
We did not care about that one. Yeah.
And the third one is in pieces with a bunch of other hardware and a bunch of other half-finished cigar box guitars as well. But
I need you to show me how to do that. Yeah, another mutual friend of ours, Zach Lundy, makes those as well.
Oh, does he
Shout
really?
out to Zach. Yeah, they're beautiful.
See, so Zach, when I built the cabinetry,
Yeah.
I was a cabinet maker in college, but that's how I got through school is I learned how to build cabinets at this custom cabinet shop.
Yeah.
But even if you look at this one, it's all kind of janky. And plus, this thing's moved around. And so,
Sure. Yeah, it's actually literally moved.
Yeah, but I couldn't figure out the doors, especially the upper glass doors. And so I actually reached out to Zach. Somebody said, "Oh, this guy can build beautiful stuff."
He's amazing. He's like a finisher, man.
Yeah, and he built the upper glass doors for me.
No way.
And the front cabinet doors on the lower half too.
Well, shout out to Zach there. Well, I'll tell you about this, buddy. Watch this podcast. Huh?
Well, you know what's neat too is back to the aesthetic, right?
Mm-hmm.
All coppers, all brass.
Yeah.
A lot of brown.
Yeah.
Right. So, but
Dark,
I wanted
rich.
Yeah, but I wanted the humidor to stand out.
Yeah.
But I didn't know what color to paint it, and then I remembered the Statue of Liberty is a copper statue that's green.
Yeah.
And so I took a very large photo of the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah.
I took a swatch of that, and I got an app that it would make the paint code.
Yeah.
So I took the Statue of Liberty color, since it's an oxidized copper.
Yes.
And I took it to the paint shop.
You've never
and
told me that before, and it makes so much sense of why that works so well in here. I've never once put that together.
Really?
Yeah. That's a great idea, and it gives that pop of color that it desperately needed for it. Yeah. And then you got this guy over here next to it, the same color. I love that.
Well, and that's neat too. So cigar store Indians have been around since, I want to say, the 1700s, when tobacco was being exported to Europe.
Yeah.
Large portions of the population were illiterate, and the West, the New Americas, were such a novelty, and stories of tribal culture here was such a, like, you couldn't comprehend it.
Yeah.
And so what they would do is they would have these carved statues of First Nations tribal folks holding the cigars to really honor where tobacco came from.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Until Columbus, tobacco was not in Europe, right?
Oh man, yeah. I
So
didn't
it's
think
crazy.
about that.
And so the neat thing about this is I found it on Facebook Marketplace, but we have a tribe here called the Lummi tribe, and they're the Salish people out on the coast.
Yeah.
And they have fished and hunted this area for a very long time. And that was made in their wood shop, and I bought it from a tribal member who had it in a garage.
Really?
And I was so excited about it because it matched the space.
Yeah.
And two, it was so unique.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And so he's a great addition to the space. A lot.
I love him. Yeah. When did you get that? Because that's newer, isn't it?
I got it when we were at the Thirsty Badger. It was a couple years ago.
Oh my
gosh.
You have evaded me.
Yeah, but and he's been in and out of here. We had him in the store for a little bit. And I was trying with the store. I was talking with some of the tribal elders. I'd made up this really cool like plaque that kind of shared the history of tobacco, the history of the Lummi Nation, and the history of the cigar store Indian. And we were going to display it in the front of our store, but I sold the store, and so I brought it back in here, and I never did anything with the display.
Perfect. Now, a question about location.
Yeah.
For running a business out of an Airstream, which is like now like something that you have, right?
Yeah.
You built it, you're doing it. What is location to you? You know, I know that Lane offered for you to be in the Thirsty Badger, but even after that, when you leave that location, how do you go about picking a spot for something so unique?
You know what's funny is that was a big motivator to building an Airstream trailer as well.
Yeah.
Was location. Like you hear that when starting a business, right? And since there's no cigar lounges, until recently there wasn't a cigar lounge for like 120 miles.
Oh, wow.
My friend Jeremy opened one called Sacred Smoke down in Tulalip.
Gotcha.
And it is a really fantastic, very nice lounge, right? Yeah. But that's still about 65 miles away. And so when I thought about this, I thought, well, I'll put it one place, and if it doesn't work, I'll tow it somewhere else.
Anywhere, right?
I can tow it anywhere.
Yeah.
And at first we thought, let's do events with it. But really the membership thing has really worked out pretty well for us. And until recently, I've not tried to make money with it.
Yeah.
I just wanted it to self-sustain. Yeah. And I needed to find a way to buy cigars so that I can afford them.
Yeah. And a place for you to hang.
Exactly.
Truly. I mean.
Yeah. So when we started, my buddy had built this beer garden at the same time I was building this. Yeah. And they offered us to be on the site. So we were on there for about 2 years.
Long time.
Until the Liquor Control Board came and said, you can't be here, which we said, well, the other guy said we could. And no, you can't. You can't have a business in a business that sells liquor. So then we had to get creative. We moved it outside the fence. We had a gate.
I remember
we built
that.
A separate fence.
I remember that. I was like, this thing's moving.
And it did really well for us there when it's nice out.
Yeah.
But it's a little too far outside of town for our members were from all over the county, right? Because remember, we're the only one for a very long distance. And in Washington, a lot of other men and women are freezing their butts off in their garages or on their patio in the rain and cold.
For sure.
So we needed to make it accessible. So we decided about a year and a half ago that we wanted to open a retail store here. Mm-hmm. And I started building out was designing and building out the retail store. And we have this back spot on the alley. Mm-hmm. Now, the alley in this town, we have Front Street, which is kind of the main street with all the cute little shops.
Oh, yeah.
But this was the original street in the town.
Was it really?
Yeah, this is where the whole town used to be when the town was founded. And in fact, there's a little, it looks like a shack across the street. But that was actually a hardware store, and like it had hitching posts and things for horses to pull up outside of, just right over there.
Yeah, behind the theater.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, and so I like that, and I like the speakeasy style. Right,
yeah,
it's very low key.
Totally.
And so we thought, well, we wanted to be near the store, and we also wanted to be really accessible, and it's right in between the kind of the two main roads into town.
Yeah,
9 miles from Bellingham. So we stuck it here. It's been a really great location for me.
Yeah.
I'm considering moving to the Thirsty Badger just for the summer.
Yeah.
Because it's really lively and fun out there.
High traffic too.
Yeah. But then in the fall, I might move back here, or I might move it mid-county. I'm not quite sure yet.
Sure.
Because our membership is growing pretty radically, but it's not Linden people that are growing it. It's people from outside.
Yeah, they're coming in.
So we could put it on a better spot in my workforce in the future. But that's the beauty about the location is this thing has 4 wheels, and I can hook it up to the truck and just get going.
You're gone.
Yeah.
I think it's funny that you said it as speakeasy because it is. It is kind of like, well, come around back.
Oh, yeah.
Meet me in the alleyway.
Absolutely.
It's so perfect.
And when I tell people if somebody reaches out to me on our Instagram or our website or something, hey, I want to kind of have a cigar there, and I show them where I send them a map, and everyone is always like, when they walk up, they're like, and we have like a nice fence outside, and I've got like nice lighting, and I got a little sign that says the Tin Can. But I wanted it to feel like a trailer park, so I have like 60s like woven chairs and old metal table out there and license plates on the fence, you know, and like I wanted to I wanted it to feel kitschy.
Yeah,
right?
it does, and it does. I love it. I love it. And you've got that space on the side too that allows you to park up there too, get really close. I dig it.
Yeah.
Totally. Oh man. Now, when you started making the second one, you dialed that in there, and I know you did it roughly about the same time, but
Yeah.
it was a lot easier than.
No, it was a lot harder.
It was harder the second time.
Yeah, because I mean,
I'm sorry, I made assumptions.
it was easier in the sense of like, okay, I know what we're getting into,
Sure.
but it's harder because it's custom,
Yeah.
and everything custom is never the same.
Yeah.
Even we saved the template that we made for the seats,
Yeah.
but we had to modify that for that one because I did the same kind of seating in the middle.
Yeah.
On that one, though, I did a Corinthian leather couch on the end.
Yeah.
And because it's in Montana, I did gorgeous Native American sculpture, a cavalry sword, an old long rifle, some old pistols mounted on the walls. Like I wanted to kind of tribute the American West.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right. And so, but the problem is the vision gets bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I wanted a table in that one with like a restaurant booth.
Yeah.
So I had to learn how to build a restaurant booth. And then I didn't want to just put a table. I wanted to do a resin table on a live edge.
You had mentioned this to me before, but please tell me again what you did.
And it was such a headache.
Yeah.
One, I'd never worked with resin, let alone like 3 inches of resin.
You're making a table out of it.
We got this. I have a friend that has a sawmill out here, and the Forest Service brought down some old growth as they were clearing out where it wasn't safe to be anymore. And they brought this old oak to my buddy, and he just let me go after it.
Yeah.
And so I milled all of this oak, and I had these big oak slabs. So I took 2 of them, and I faced them with the live edge inward, and I laid the first coating.
Yeah.
And it spilled all over the place. Came out.
So hard.
Then I learned how to seal it, and then I heated it too fast, and it cracked and crumbled.
Bubbles too.
Yeah. So the second layer was about a 1/2 inch, but we put black in it to tint.
Yeah.
And we put that. But this is where I got in trouble. I didn't want just a clear table.
Yeah.
I wanted to put a tomahawk in the middle of the table.
Of course it's you.
Yeah.
Of course it's you.
I wanted to float a Damascus steel tomahawk in the middle of this table. I wanted it to be the centerpiece.
Yeah.
So I found a Damascus steel handmade tomahawk. I set it in the middle of this table, but I had to figure out how to level it and get it all set. And then I had to fill up.
Yeah,
It was about $700 in resin. Holy smokes. And it was easily 60 plus hours of building that tabletop. So I was in way over my head, and it took way longer than I anticipated but the vision was so big, right?
Yeah.
And I knew it was going to be a centerpiece. It was going to be.
You can do it.
And I know I could do it.
Almost there.
Yeah.
I am the same way.
Oh, and the worst is when I had the last layer, and it's in this nice heated shop where my friend makes the most beautiful live edge stuff. A fly landed on it and got stuck on it, and I had to sand it all down and pour another little level of resin on top of it.
No way.
I was so mad. These 3 little fly dimples in it just drove me nuts, man.
Never again.
Never again.
Yeah. Man.
But yeah, I mean, it was easier in the sense of like I learned how to do some things better.
Yeah.
But also I learned how to. I also had bigger vision.
Yeah.
And so I took on more. It still took me about the same amount of time, about 1,200 hours, and then a couple hundred hours on top of that of thinking and problem solving. It still took me 9 months to do.
Yeah.
That's when my army of friends grew, and we had these parties and stuff where the guys would come out and work on it. But it was a lot of work, man.
Jeez. And you're talking about Corinthian couches, things like that. You didn't like upholster these, or did you?
No. So
in
the other trailer, we upholstered the booth, the restaurant booth. And I have a friend, Gail. She's in her 70s. She's the most amazing, beautiful woman. And she's really good at upholstery, so she did the restaurant bench. But I bought these chairs on Amazon.
Yeah.
And I threw the frames away, and I just used the cushions.
That's so sweet.
I didn't want to throw the frames away because I hate waste, and I like repurposing, but there was nothing I could figure out to do with it.
You're like, nah.
And I was already in over my head with this thing.
Yeah.
But they've held up really well.
They're perfect.
They've lasted. I'm going to have to start probably replacing them in the next couple of years if I keep the trailer that long.
Yeah.
But I've really enjoyed how comfortable they are and how comfortable they've continued to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was actually even before we got them, we built the frames out for these things, and then I found the chairs.
Wow. Wow.
And we made it work. And
that works perfectly.
Yeah, the second time around, I ordered the chairs first, and then we built the benches.
yeah.
But it was pretty much the same thing because we already knew what we were doing.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's dumb luck.
There's this is a total random thing. This is my ADD, but Jack White of the White Stripes.
Yep.
He used to make furniture and big on upholstering and things like that. And so he used to write lyrics down. His own lyrics. I guess you almost say the poems, if you will.
Yeah.
And he would upholster them into his furniture.
Really?
So you put the poem in, and then you upholster the chair. So somewhere in the world, there's a bunch of furniture with like Jack White poetry in it or
that's
lyrics,
amazing.
if you will. So like you find it like that's amazing for one, but like also like, gosh, like one of the best artists ever.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
That would be worth a lot of money.
And to get back on topic, have you hidden anything in here?
Oh, absolutely. I have back here. I have a magnet for a handgun.
Okay, yeah.
So I keep that here. That's a little hidden secret. There's not one up there currently. But
that's for the interview process.
Yeah, I have my concealed permit, and so we did a handful of like live events in the city.
Sure.
And you just didn't know what we were going to encounter, and I'm always prepared to be safe and well trained. So I put that up there.
And you've been in the thick of it before.
Yeah,
in your life.
I've been in a couple
little snafus.
I have been in places where there has been violence and not caused by me. But
for sure. Yeah, let's clarify that. Not from him.
Yes. That's required. It's required extra, right?
Yeah.
But back to the secret compartments. Yeah, so like in the base of these seats, I cut some squares out, and so I have stuff stored under the seats.
So these can be a storage as well.
There's storage in some of them. Yep. That's about it, though. I don't have a lot of hidden gems in here in terms of that. The Montana one, my buddy TJ, who runs that shop, he's a Marine, and I put hidden gun compartments all over that thing because TJ comes heavy, and I wanted to like give him cool spaces to kind of do that, you know.
Some options.
Yeah. Exactly. Totally that way.
I love that. It's like those weird mirrors that you see. Have you seen those ones where you go like this and that, and then it opens?
It opens.
Crazy.
Yep. In the retail store, I built a secret passageway in there because we built a walk-in humidor, but there's the door that went to our back office.
Yes.
But I had to cover that door up in order to have this walk-in humidor, and so I made that a fully with shelving and lighting and everything. But you open it to go into the back office.
When you were talking about speakeasies earlier, I was like, I wanted to mention that, but I didn't know if you wanted me to mention the fact that there's like a hidden wall. But I remember, so I go my very first time ever going into the retail store. You were like, "Come here, real quick," and we go into the humidor, and you push that wall. And I remember it being like almost like the world didn't exist at that moment. Like I was like, the walls are moving, but it's very Batman. It's very Batcave of you. I love that. I think that's great.
Batman's my favorite superhero. It just makes sense.
It does make sense, man.
Well, and that's, you want to have fun with these kind of projects. Like it's very laborious.
Yeah.
And especially with like my temperament.
Yeah.
I got to build things that it's going to be fun. Like in the Montana one, I built these LED light walls.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I have no idea how to do this. I have no idea how to make an LED light wall.
Sure.
Let alone in an Airstream with all these angles. And so I just played around with a bunch of, I got parchment paper, some like Home Depot, like decorative metals. And I made these tracks and put LEDs in them. And it was great. But like, you got to do fun little things to challenge yourself as well.
Get out that comfort zone of like what you think that, hey, I'm probably going to fail at this. Well, you know what? I can fail.
Well, and I think that's the thing, and that's a really important part when you're thinking about taking on big projects.
Yeah.
I had never done a trailer remodel.
No.
I've done some car stuff.
Yeah.
I've done some woodworking. This is kind of a little bit of both, but its own monster in and of itself.
Yeah.
And so, but I'm willing to learn.
Yeah.
And I think we talked about this in an earlier episode, but when you're taking on a project, you don't have to know everything.
Yeah.
You don't have to, like, I literally started with the most basic sketch.
Legit.
That was legit the full extent of the vision.
It was a Jelly Belly with seats.
Exactly. And now, but you learn.
Yeah.
And you got to be patient with yourself.
Yeah.
The best deals. So I bought in 2 of these Airstreams. Yeah. Both of them was from somebody that watches a lot of HGTV, a lot of DIY shows. Said, I want to make a tiny house, or I want to make a mobile restaurant or a food truck.
Yeah.
And then they realize how much work it is, and they either run out of energy, money, or time. And the first car I ever restored, I had almost $20,000 invested in this thing. I was watching Monster Garage and overhauling with Chip Foose, and I'm trying to build this car out like that with a budget of not that. And I ended up selling the car for like $4,000. Yeah. So close to being done, but not done.
Yeah.
And so I understood that. And so I take advantage of that now.
Yeah. You're the guy that's like, I will take the seconds. Yeah. Or the thirds at this point.
Well, and it's funny because you hop on Facebook Marketplace and somebody's got the same trailer as this one, and they're listing it for $17,000 or $30,000 in the condition that I got it in.
Yeah.
And then you see the one, I saw one this week for $2,200, and it was in better condition than I got this one in.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's sitting in somebody's driveway, and somebody said it's got to go.
Do you still sometimes?
Oh, I'm always looking.
Yeah. A little bit. Looking. Start a third, start a fourth. Yeah.
I'm getting the Montana, so that we outgrew the Montana one.
Gotcha.
TJ has done such an amazing job building that business up that he's got to move into a brick and mortar build. He's going to move into a building. Now, the way I set this up is I own the trailers.
Yeah.
You pay a partnership fee. I build it out for you, and then you lease it from me.
Gotcha.
And I continue to own it. So like a property manager would do with a retail space. And so that's what I did with the trailers. I watched The Founder with Michael Keaton.
Yeah.
And I realized, McDonald's burgers is McDonald's second source of income. They're the largest real estate owner in the world.
Yeah.
McDonald's owns more land in the world than anybody else.
Yeah.
That's real money.
That's so crazy.
Right?
Yeah.
And so that's what my friend Greg told me about that movie. I watched it on a flight. And I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to build trailers, and I'm going to own the trailers, but lease them out.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, I'm just going to build them and let them go.
Yeah.
So when I get the Montana one back this summer, I'll probably sell one of these and use that to...
Do you know which one yet?
I might sell this one.
Yeah, you think so?
The Montana one, because I learned so much from it, from the first one.
Yeah.
I like the flow. It's quite a bit bigger. It's 8 feet longer. It's about a foot and a half wider. It's a couple inches taller.
Gotcha.
And then there's more kind of variety of space.
Yeah.
And I really like that.
Yeah.
I could get more money if I sold the Montana one because of those things.
Yes, sure.
But I've been in this one for 5 years. Just kind of ready to try something else.
Exactly. It also is the new thing, right? So get rid of this one, the other one comes in this location. Now you're in a new space, which feels good.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I dig that too.
It'd be fun.
And all the little hidden guns.
Yeah. More hidden guns.
Yeah.
Yeah. No kids are allowed in here.
Yeah. Or baboons.
Yeah. Or baboons.
Yeah. Full circle. No.
Well, and I think that's the reason that we started this podcast, right? And that's why we wanted to do this episode in here, is because we've heard some incredible stories from our guests so far.
Yeah.
We've heard land speed record stories, baboons falling from the skies, gaming grandmas, right? We've heard Christian card sharps. We've heard moms with great side businesses.
Coffee makers.
And we've heard some really incredible stories, and I love it. But I felt like, well, I want to invite our listeners, especially the ones that are watching, because this is more for the visual crowd, right?
For sure.
But I wanted to bring them in here, and I wanted to kind of talk about the principles, because you do have to take inventory of what you're going to have to sacrifice in order to make things that you like, that you're dreaming about. You have to take inventory of that. Yeah. If you would have told me up front you're going to spend over 1,000 hours in there, I probably would have said no.
Yeah.
I don't have 1,000 hours.
I don't have any hours to spare.
Yeah. But I'm glad I didn't know that part.
Yeah.
And for me, the three big things for me to weigh out was, I don't want to go in debt. Maybe I want to build something that will maybe make some money someday in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And I want to create a space where people can come and have conversation and have community.
Yeah.
Those were the three things that I measured. Yeah. And I said, community is worth it. We're going to just figure it out to not go in debt. I didn't measure out how much time is it going to take.
Well, and also, too, I think that, that blind optimism is great, where it's you're actually that's what I love about you. You build the things that you love, It isn't a profit-making thing. It isn't a, well, I've got this scheme to make money.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, no, I want to go to a place where I wanted something, so I'm going to make it. Those seem to work out better than just like I'm trying to start the second job or another grind, if you will.
Yeah.
Like, it's got to be from the heart, or else 1,000 hours they're gonna feel a little different.
Yeah, I mean, you'll never make your money back on that, right?
Yeah,
Like,
for sure.
If I built this trailer out, if I would have billed myself my time,
Right.
I would have. You
never would have done it.
I'm out.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah,
Even the
absolutely.
second one, TJ is my friend.
Yep.
I want to see him succeed.
Community
So,
came with the part of building it as well.
I knew I was quoting him low on the partnership, but I was like, but I think we can make it work. And I ended up going in a little bit of debt on that one.
Yeah.
Right. Because it was more than we could chew. We bit off more than we can chew financially with it. So I've gotten a little smarter with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have a career coach friend of mine, Mark Warren, and Mark said, one of the things that's unique about me, and it's probably both a pro and a con, is like, he's like, you're not driven by money.
Yeah.
You're driven by relationship and passion.
Yeah.
And if you have those two things, you're going to succeed. And if money can be a byproduct of it, great.
Sure.
And I've been really fortunate in my life to be able to do a lot of things that I really enjoy.
Yeah.
Outside of making a living.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I could definitely tell that with you, where it's like, that's the last thing on the, really, you built this so you could sit there and smoke a cigar.
Yeah.
yeah. I love it. I love
we
that
could
came
sit
out
here
of
and have
this.
this conversation.
Yeah, then we can do this. Yeah.
Yeah. That's it. That's the motivation.
Yeah, exactly.
It's purely driven by passion.
Yeah, you're here more than your customers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that's, you always have to know your why when you're doing something, and pursuing finances and financial freedom is amazing.
Yeah.
And in fact, I wish I probably would have done that a little bit more in my life, considering
Yeah.
the season of life I'm in now. But the reality is that, like, I've got to build some really great things that I've really enjoyed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited about whatever it is I get to build next, but I'm also really content.
Yeah.
And I'm in a place where I can just enjoy some of the things I've made too.
Yeah, and see other people enjoying it too.
Yeah. That's the best part about it.
That's the best part. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is watching and hearing the stories of other people that they tell about this place.
Yeah.
And other ventures that you've been into. I know there's a ton.
We got a lot of weird stuff.
Yeah, you have. You've kind of done everything.
Yeah. I think that for our listeners, we want to get people off the couch.
Yeah.
And, one of the things I've learned is that everybody has an idea, and a lot of people have good ideas.
Sure.
But we've become limited to accomplishing those things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all in our heads.
Yeah.
Like, I can't tell you, I have a lot of entrepreneurial conversations in here.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are just stuck in their heads. Well, I don't know how to, or I've never, or that just seems like too much.
Yeah.
And those are good things to weigh out. And probably the fact that I don't have any of that is in some way foolish. But on the flip side, I go, oh, this is an opportunity to learn.
Yeah.
This is another skill. This is something I can figure out, and I shared in the second episode that we did together, my dad and granddad just gave me permission to not know everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to learn from those around you.
It's huge.
And so my whole life has been always, as I hope I'm doing, I'm always made better by the people around me and the communities around me. And I'm always made more complete and whole. And you feel a little bit more brave
to
try hard things.
Absolutely.
I'll tell you, man, all the nights that my buddy John came here and helped me frame these seats out, those were life-giving moments.
Yeah.
And the hour that John and I would hang out at the end of that shift that night in my driveway, that was the reward.
Yeah.
But like the time we had together, that's everything.
Yeah.
This is the byproduct. Relationship is the key, right?
Yeah.
And so I love that, and it was worth the cost in that sense of time. And it's fun too to model for my kids. Like, my kids got to see their dad take on something big, had no idea what he was doing.
Got to see him in over his head at moments too.
Yep.
That's huge.
And frustrated and like quit for a couple days or a couple weeks, right?
But then get back at it.
Back at it. And I hope, that I've imparted that in my kids as they become adults now. And I hope that that's something that they remember, because it's going to serve them well in their lives if they can do that.
You didn't run from it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, my big thing is what I tell my kids is if you want something, go for it or make it.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a job that doesn't exist, make it exist.
Yeah.
If there's something that you think you want to do it.
Yes.
Like, not everything, but just because it's not out there doesn't mean that there isn't a need or a call for that.
Yes.
Or a guy that just wants a dry place to hang out with his friends. You know what I'm saying? Even if you think it's ridiculous, go for it.
Yep.
It's not. It's really, truly not. I love that too.
Yeah.
Like you, and when you're out here and you take 3 weeks off, your kids learn that when we fall, we get back up. Right? Love that.
That's what I love about Travax. That's what really drew me to the company.
Yeah.
Is, when Mark started this, it was a side hustle.
Yeah.
Some guys in an apartment.
Was it a GoFundMe?
It was a Kickstarter.
Kickstarter.
They started a Kickstarter. They made these wallets. They coated them in their oven. They,
That probably smelled great.
Oh my gosh.
They're all just
I
fumed out.
probably lost our damage deposit. Mark, if you're watching this, let me know if you lost your damage
Yeah,
deposit.
we need to know about that.
But the reality is like that company, this is why we built this podcast, because it's the same ethos, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Here's some guys that weren't content with the status quo, and how many wallets are already out there?
Yeah.
Right? What does the world do with another wallet?
Right.
But they built something really special.
Yeah.
They built a company that is beyond their own comprehension from what they originally made.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that I love about my job, and that's the thing I love about Travax in particular, is how it started, but also the fact that it continues to be an ever expanding, a growing child of Mark's mind.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what I loved about the tin can. This was an idea. It was a sketch, just like the wallets were a sketch.
Yeah.
And now it's a reality.
Yeah. And you dwell in it.
Yeah.
And then that is so true what you said there, the ethos of a Travax and in American Grindstone does come together, because it really does. It's, not being complacent. And when you look back at your life, just like your shirt you're wearing now, you earned your story. There isn't that. That's the biggest thing for me, is when, not to get morbid or anything like that, but like when I'm on the outs of this world, I want to know, I earned it. Yeah. I earned the out. You know what I mean? I earned the right to meet my maker and leave everyone and be like, I did the best I could. Yeah. And
that was
have not a legacy, but it's just something for my kids.
Yeah. Something to look back on.
For them.
Like the tree that my great-grandfather planted, right?
Yeah.
If you would have told him it's going to be in a cigar lounge someday that your great-great-grandson built.
Videos. Yeah.
Yeah, that's unfathomable, right?
Yeah, you'd be like, what? Yeah.
Yeah.
Or a desk.
And a trailer, which hadn't even been invented in this kind of
Yeah.
An aluminum stagecoach, and a metal stagecoach. That's pretty much what that was like, right?
We'll call it the tin can.
Yes. So that's the fun part about it, right?
Yeah, it is.
And I think that there's a real beauty in that, but it does take it takes vision. Mm-hmm. It takes knowing your why. It takes writing it down, write everything down. Doesn't have to be organized. Just write it down just all the time, right? Stupid little ideas, big ones. Just put them on paper. You don't even have to go back and examine them again. But I'll tell you, when you do, it is really rewarding. You find the first sketchings of a podcast that we're now doing.
Right?
You see that. And so I hope that our listeners, they find that, it takes work. Mm-hmm. It takes grit. You can sharpen one another in the process. Yeah. You can come out the other side with something that you're proud of. Mark said in the podcast last week, the main reason he stopped playing blackjack was because for a career is because he felt he wasn't contributing anything to the world.
Yeah.
He was taking from the casinos like Robin Hood and giving it to local churches and things. But he realized I wasn't making anything.
At the end of the day, what was his story?
Yeah.
You know, I agree. 1,000% agree with that. And what we talked about too in our second episode, you know, a doer, someone who's aspiring to be a doer, trying to learn that discipline.
Yeah.
Like, I can speak to that part of it of just trying to get up and be more active in getting that grind going.
Yeah.
It takes some time, man. And I'm not even completely there yet.
Yep.
But it takes some time. But when you get that discipline, you can retrain your brain. You truly, absolutely, absolutely can.
And you might just need somebody to give you a little pep talk to get you across those mental barriers.
Yeah. I mean, that's where I've been, somewhat using you for. What you got going on? Like, and how do you do this? You're like, you just do it. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I just go for it. Like, don't second guess everything.
Yeah, that's what Chanel said a couple weeks ago, right? In the episode, she did. I said, what advice would you give somebody that wants to start their own business? She said, you just have to do it.
Yeah.
And you just have to know it's not going to turn out the way you maybe wanted it to.
Yeah.
Like I look around here and I see all the things wrong with this thing because I have been close on over every little piece of it.
Yeah.
And it was the composer Tchaikovsky that said, man is his own worst critic, right? So like that is true. But the reality is that like nobody else notices it.
It's gorgeous.
And people just enjoy it.
Yeah.
And you have to just give yourself permission to be like, I just got to enjoy it too.
Yeah. 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 They're just dwelling in it. I got to dwell as well.
Yeah. You got to just enjoy it. So I hope if you're listening to this, I hope maybe there was a nugget of truth for you in that. I hope maybe you found something that helps get you over that mental hurdle, whether or not it's just writing your idea down or it's seeing kind of what we've done here. Or it's, I don't know, one of the stories we told. Maybe you got some of Granddad's old wood in the garage and you've been waiting to do something with it. Like, just get up and do something.
Yeah.
Do something that you love and find some people to do it with. It makes it that much better.
Find your tin can, man.
Yeah.
Find it.
Yeah. Well, this was fun, man.
This was great.
I think that, we want to do different kinds of podcasts to kind of break it up a little bit as we go along, and I think that this was a fun way to kind of do it. And I wanted to invite our listeners and our viewers into this space to see it a little differently.
Absolutely.
And to kind of get an idea of the stories. And there's so many cool little things, and so we'll make Micah walk around with a camera for a couple of days and catch all the little pieces.
I'm sure you guys have been seeing it while this whole thing is played out.
Yeah.
For our viewers, that is. But also being doers ourselves and like taking a chance to be like, why don't we just go there?
Yeah.
That's a risk, to try something different in this kind of medium. And I'm happy we did.
Me too, man.
Yeah.
Me too.
Well, thanks, Sean.
All right, dude.
I love you, man.
Love you too, dude. Hey, thanks for all for listening. Have a great week. And tune in next week. We got some fun stuff coming up.
So, bye.
Like and subscribe.